What's good, DC? What's good, Maryland? What's good, Virginia? What's good, worldwide? Welcome back to our season finale of Life After the Gunshot. Can you believe it, bro?
It's
We
crazy,
managed to
man.
get through 5 shows.
At a time
No
like
love to
this is crazy.
StreamYard, though.
Nah,
No love to StreamYard. We ain't got love for y'all. But before we start the show, I just want to say, the show again is brought to you by who? Baba Marie Josephine Cakes. You can find that on IG, the best pastries in the DMV. Make sure you check that out. And I also want to say that we wrapping it up for season 5 for first season, episode 5. But I want to give a shout out to everybody that's been on the show. Shout out to my man Rollo from Cure the Streets, Joanna Hardy, Guns Down Friday, Booby. What's good, brother? Shout out to my man Booby. Shout out to Young Fresh. And yo, I want to say, my condolences to the family of young brother that was just shot in Southeast DC today, this evening. I don't know the circumstances of what happened in that situation, but whenever a black man is shot by the police, we always have to think about the circumstances that led to it. And it's just unfortunate that so many of our young brothers are being gunned down in the streets. And, we talk a lot about, interpersonal violence, but we don't talk enough about, or we should be talking more about, even the gun violence that is happening between the MPD and police departments all across the country and young brothers. So, God bless him. God bless his family. So without any further ado, my man, this is probably one of the smartest dudes we know. He's been on our show multiple times. Could talk just about anything. We could talk for hours on end. But for anybody
but
that doesn't know, what you say, Check?
before we start, man, I just want to quote what Meek Mill said in one of his songs, man. He said, "We at war with the system and the streets." You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think
it
that was one of the
is.
most profound
Yeah,
statements that I've
yeah,
ever heard. Him say. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because it's very true, man. And you guys who don't know me, I'm Bullets with no name. I'm the co-host. Of the Life After Gunshot podcast. Hey, guys, just stay safe in these streets. Understand that every day is a blessing. You know what I mean? Don't get indoctrinated into thinking tomorrow is promised, because it's not. You know what I mean? And kiss your loved ones. You know what I mean? And tell them you love them. You know what I mean? And treat them like the gold that they are, because you never know. When you walk out that door,
Yeah,
if
it's
you coming
real.
home or not. And that's
Exactly.
that definitely
Exactly.
goes for our
Or you
black
don't
people.
know if you're going to come home in the same way that you left.
Exactly.
So, let's also acknowledge that. So, man, without any further ado, I'm going to let the clip speak for itself, and then we going to introduce our man and our last guest of the season that way, because it's apropos that we had this brother on to close out the season. So, play that clip.
Absolutely. You think about the things that even lead them to the path of being incarcerated. Rather, it's a failed school system, right, that leads them to feeling like they want to choose a life of crime to survive, or whatever the case may be, or just living in the communities where access to opportunities isn't there. And then you go to prison and there's no rehabilitative structure there, right, to help you improve, to help you move forward, and you release back to that very same community. And then the violent act occurs, and then you go, by the grace of God, you survive, and then you right back in that community, potentially get shot again. Like these are the cycles that we see. These are the things we witness and go through every single day, and we have to figure out a way to do something different, right? And again, and stop blaming the victim. Like, they just choosing. I hear that so much, and it's like, no, it's much more layered than that. And even the choices that they make is influenced by something, right? And so, I just want people to understand that this is an ecosystem that people are just in, trying to survive, and it's trauma laden, right? And if we as a community, or people that have had different privileges and different experiences, just think, you should just do what I did, not fully understanding what people have to endure in those communities. So, we got a lot of work to do, but at the same time, I'm hopeful But I really feel like that the individuals that are surviving and going through these things hold the answer. You know, they have genius in them, and I think it's just important that we understand that and value them enough to try to see that genius manifest.
Yo, without any further ado, author, activist, all around, just solid brother, good man, one of the smartest brothers that I know, and I mean that sincerely. Yo, bring my man on, Tony Lewis Jr.
Stop, Che. What's happening?
What's good, my brother?
I'm solid, man. Good, man.
Let's
Good
get to that clip. You saw that.
Yeah, that's real. I was like, yeah. You know, yeah, that's a good look. I like the way that looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, salute to that.
Everything you said you was dropping, I was like, nah, we gonna play this.
Yeah,
I mean, you had a ton of jewels, and we gonna drop that when we drop the series. So everybody be on the lookout for that. So you got a ton of jewels in your interview, but man, we just thought that we was gonna ride with that one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's good shit. I'm sorry. That's good stuff. I'm glad to see that.
Kurt?
Yeah, we uncensored. This made.
Yeah. Yeah, that's dope. I appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, I want to kind of, jump into that immediately.
Okay.
Like with what you said, and then we could kind of go back a little bit. But the whole blaming the victim. Yeah. Because we hear this conversation all the time, like, they shouldn't have been, they were responsible for what they did. This is their situation. Why should we be intervening? They had a choice, which we clearly understand people can make choices, right? But in certain contexts, like the options of your choices are limited.
Precisely. And so many times, because of the trauma and the things that have been placed upon our communities, systemic oppression and systemic racism, how you stated, what you so clearly helped me see in terms of state violence, these things manifest themselves in a way in which even the opportunities that somebody that feel that may have come from some point of privilege or a different circumstance can see, those individuals going through those things can't even see the options sometimes that are like what we say right in front of them, right?
Right.
So it's much deeper than what people take sort of this drone approach, and they make a lot of assumptions based on their own perspective. And even when people come from certain environments or circumstances, I don't think they necessarily look enough at how they got the way they are, even if they came from a similar environment. And I think we're easy to sort of credit ourselves with oh yeah, well, they can make the choices that I made, right? Not understanding that even in the choices that you made, like, it's unfortunate that we got to be so lucky. I hate to describe my journey as like having luck, but like, it's so improbable sometimes that it was luck involved or blessing if I having somebody want to view it, but it shouldn't be that hard is what I'm getting at. And so that I'm saying all that to say that there definitely are other things in play, particularly with young Black men and women in our communities and in other communities, brown young Black young brown men and women. What happens is I often feel like it's like when a woman that gets raped and somebody asks her what did she have on, what I'm saying? It's exactly. In a very similar way, right? That you're like, what does that have to do with anything? You know what I'm saying? What does that have to do with what happened? What happened to her should not have happened, no matter if she had nothing on. And I feel like that with us in our communities, it's like people would look to say, well, they were involved in this lifestyle, or they didn't make this choice, or they dropped out of school, or they had a gun, or whatever the situation is, and it takes away what really led to people's outcome. And so yeah, that's pretty much like how I look at it. And I try not to ever do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I try to speak for those people. Like I try to bring up the other side of that equation,
Why do you think, is such, and me and Che talk about this a lot, why do you think it's such a chasm between by social class where people that have made it out of that situation that might have moved out to Prince George's County or whatever, I mean, I don't want to indict that, but that have left and then look back with kind of the $30,000, for aerial viewing. Like, well, I made it. I'm living out here. I made these decisions. Like, how did we arrive at this having this kind of chasm between social class where we make these kind of preconceived, stereotypical negative assumptions about why somebody couldn't make it and why another person did?
Yeah, that's a great question, Doc. I think what happens, honestly, is that those people aren't well versed on all of what they really overcame. They don't really understand what was set up, right? The systemic things that were present, and again, they by the grace of God, they were able to get that job in the government or start that business or whatever, took them out of their situation. But really accepting that it was all about choice. You know what I'm saying? When these communities, there's deeper issues. So it's not the playing field isn't even. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, there is some accountability on the decision maker, right? But just know that there are really, and I'm even speaking from a personal place. I never even held some of them views, but as I've grown and evolved and met people like y'all and got different perspectives to truly understand that. Now, I'm gonna give you an example, right? Of what I'm talking about. Even I'm a person, like, 'cause I like to do that too. I'm talking about me. I remember I was on a podcast. This is a while ago, right? Early podcast, when podcasts first came out, right? It's like 8 years ago, 8 years ago. And a guy was talking to me about redlining, right? And I was like, he was saying redlining in DC, right? So I'm only speaking from my understanding, though I knew what redlining was, but in my time on this earth, I'm saying these communities were always black. So I was like, well, I don't think that impacted, us here in DC. You all know that happened in Chicago, and I'm telling them all about my
Right.
But right, but after the podcast and things that I would research and read and to see redlining happening right here in our community, or how even people, my grandparents, why they moved on this block was because they couldn't move. They had to leave. My grandfather he couldn't live in Georgetown anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm trying to say is that a lot of times people that coming from these communities, you don't even really understand and what created your community or the issues in your community. You don't understand the different oppressive policies and laws that really played a part, that no matter what a person or the fact that the generation before us didn't even have a choice. So obviously that plays a part in the choices that we make, the choices that we think we can make, the dreams that we have. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people tend to, what helped us leave Africa and as human beings inhabit the rest of the earth was our ability, projectile weapons, but in our ability to cooperate, right? And I think human beings like to think that I know people use terms like human beings, people are like sheep, but that's an innate, mechanism to help us survive. We do follow what everybody else is doing. So in a lot of ways, you're gonna have people that come from certain environments or certain, communities that forge a new path. But in so many ways, right, there's a system set up where people tend to, operate in a similar fashion. And so it becomes, whether it's, getting involved in when you don't have opportunities for people to do things, people have to survive. And that creates a cycle, a way of life that people find themselves in. So when people say, oh, it's just about that person made a choice and they could have done this and that, that's not necessarily the case. You know what I mean? I ain't seen nobody go to work, man. Like, I really didn't. I say that a lot, but I didn't. So like
right.
I got lucky that I have, you know what I'm saying, that I'm a professional, right? That I go to work every day. That's not,
and you want to know, it's not to cut you off, Tony.
No work.
Working at PG Hospital, I've seen a lot of guys come in that's been, shot 5-6 times, right? And they didn't live in Southeast. They lived in Bowie. They had both their parents. Both their parents were highly paid, professionals, right? So when we talk about classism and gun violence in, our urban communities, we don't talk about how many guys that didn't grow up in the hood, that didn't grow up in the urban community, that grew up in that white class privilege type of perspective, but they're getting shot as well. So I wonder mentally, like, where does that come from? Why do you want a gun if you grew up in Bowie and you got both your parents and you went to private school?
So
That's the
so let
conversation.
me jump in on that because I got a perfect personalized example of that. This happened to me yesterday. So I'm following my godson on Instagram, and he doing like a 4-minute freestyle. Born in the suburbs, mom, amazing job, father, amazing job, well educated, mother, whole nine. Everything he was saying was totally the antithesis of how he was raised.
Yeah.
And I wanted to so bad, but because he's my godson, I can't copy that and put it on Front Street because I wanted to copy it and put it on Instagram and be like, listen, all it is not real.
Yeah.
Y'all listening to this, but y'all really don't know the backstory for this kid. It all looks like it's real. It's not.
Yeah. But we identifying ourselves. I mean, I think obviously pop culture has played a part in us as black men feeling like, we gotta identify ourselves by, our toughness. You know what I'm saying? We these are the things, these are the ideals that we gotta aspire to be. I think that's incredibly unfortunate that you get kids that have various opportunities, that have support, have resources, and they want to buy into this narrative that being street is what is about. You know what I'm saying? I think that's super. But again, I think there's been some other forces present to perpetuate that too. And that's why, again, in terms of what you guys know about me, that's why I stand so firmly on who I am as a positive guy, as a person that's value education, values helping the community, like and knowing that comes along with respect also. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Trying to really be a representation of that. Because it's for our young black men who parents may have come from them circumstances that grinded, to create a new life in a better way for their children, and you find children sort of still gravitating or trying to seek that out. You know what I mean? We gotta really be transparent with young people about the importance of that, and especially for black males like that. Listen, bro, being tough, that can't be how you validate yourself. You know what I'm saying? You cannot being from. We say things like that. Like we talk about, oh, man, he a good boy, he a college boy, or it's, you know what I'm saying? We talk, we say those things with such a negative connotation. And my cousin out in Maryland, I mean, I'm right in that. I've said those things myself. You know what I'm saying? But again, like I said before, that's because you come and you don't understand there's a bigger world than your hood, and that what we're stuck in is not really the ideal situation. You know what I mean? But once you evolve, once you become enlightened, then I think it's people's duty to really share that.
And it's crazy, Tony, because we took 2 of our guys up on campus. Just the shadow, walking around, see the beautiful campus that Maryland has. And every guy that we brought up on campus, when they left, guess what they said? How do I get here? What do I need to do to enroll?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that makes me feel like they just need the opportunity. Number one, and number two, they need to self-motivate themselves, right? To understand that there's more out here than just that 4 to 5 block, a situation. And I think that, we so wrapped up in our trauma, you know what I mean? We don't see nothing else, man. We don't see nothing else
y'all
at all.
when y'all do that though, Shay, like, man, y'all become, I mean, it's so for real. I don't want to let y'all devalue that in any way. Not to say that y'all don't really already get, but like y'all are bridge to that though. Like so if I see Doc and I see you and I know y'all build with me. I feel connected to y'all. I feel like we got things in common. I feel like y'all care, and then y'all bring me right. I trust y'all enough to take me somewhere. I go somewhere with y'all, and then y'all show me something that I never seen before. Wherever I knew, I may knew it was the University of Maryland, but I never had nobody to usher me in and show me and make it real for me. And so many times in our community, like I think that's part of it. When it's nobody that you trust, love, know, right, that can be the person to be the anchor in the bridge to other opportunities. That's when it becomes so. Even when a quote unquote opportunity, presents itself, I don't trust it. You know what I'm saying? Or somebody that they point to say you should look up to this person. Like respect to that person or whatever. But I don't really look because he ain't like. That's how I feel. Like, and he ain't been through what I've been through.
Right.
Come from. And it's a gap there. Like, and so I think, I just want to salute y'all for those kind of things, right? That innovative, those innovative strategies, because just to show a young man, like, you could be here, bro. You could like be on this campus and have them ask y'all, how do I do that? You know what I'm saying? That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Because young they want to do some stuff if you just show them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they don't like want that.
It was crazy because, and this is the problem too that I found. Like one of the challenges is, and I was having this discussion with one of my colleagues the other day. We were talking about safe streets in Baltimore, and one of the things that we were saying is, and shout out to him, Daniel Webster. One of the things we were saying was, like, a lot of the programs are like cookie cutter, right? So what you have is, you'll have like a cure violence model or safe streets model or ceasefire, and then the next program will like replicate it and do the same thing without really innovating and advancing the program. So what you have is programs that just, they become almost like branded, and the brand is too big to fail, right? And so you'll have a brand of like cure violence, and it's no disrespect to it, but I think like when you create a model that started in like 1995, like you can't continue to do that same shit in 2020. Like, I don't care how good the model is, right? It has to adapt to the times. And what happens is these models get branded, and then people it's almost like the social entrepreneurship, like people get cachet off of it, and they begin to make money. But what we ran into at PG is we took a hospital violence intervention model and we flipped it. We were like, first of all, we ain't doing this all in the hospital. We gonna do some of it on campus. You know what I'm saying? We were thinking about, we got with one of my interns who is a Buddhist, and he brought his mom up to the school, and we were like, okay, she was like, you could bring these guys up to like a Buddhist retreat that we have out in Pennsylvania. But when we went back to the hospital to present the ideas, they were like, get the fuck out of here. We don't want to do that.
Right.
And so I think so, like some of the ways, like, and Chase says this all the time, and I respect it. He's like, yo, Doc, I really don't want to deal with these institutions anymore, because often like the institutions will hold the innovation back.
Sure. Yes, sir. I mean, institutions, agency, governments, or whatever, like they all, because I think it got so much to do with them not really understanding. I think the idea also of like, now you need, best practices, blah, 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 right?
Right.
I get, you need models, right? But I think that I think it speaks to people's thoughts, outlooks on, us. Because to think that that one model, like a model, can fit, like you said about this cookie cutter, can fit every situation or every individual, I think speaks like really, it says a lot about the thought, right? It's like, it's almost like where our issues are where like it's simplistic, you know what I'm saying? And like for one individual may need a lot, one individual may but everything is unique. Every neighborhood is unique, every beef is unique.
Exactly.
And I think people should, especially the practitioners, right? The experts should have the flexibility to approach these situations and assess these situations, and then move forward in the way they deem necessary. You know what I mean? And you continue to like, so like to that point, if you're in the work and somebody makes a suggestion, you should be able to move on that. right? Oh yeah, we got this Buddhist retreat. We should be able to say, okay, fine, that's what we're doing tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? I think,
exactly.
to the client or to the person that's receiving the services, you know, I've seen in my experiences that they really respect that, because they're like, "Damn, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do all this for me, or y'all gonna do all this for us." You know what I mean? It's particularly for people, when you talk about trauma, that people that's been lied to, let down. You know what I'm saying? You know, led astray their whole, you know, time after time after time, whether they're young or old. I think it's important to people, but people have to really understand and not just be like they think. I think that's, I mean, but I think it's another thing that happens with us. People really think that they understand. You know, I get that all the
They
time.
do.
I'm like, no, you don't. You do not get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get it. How you
Like,
get
you
it?
don't get it.
You don't get it, and that should be okay, because there's some things I don't get, and I'm just, so it's like, man, I'm here, I'm just listening. Yeah, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not here like, yeah, like, you know, I don't get it. I'm just here to listen, you know.
But the thing I most respect about anyone that they could tell me, and that I had to learn myself in my own assessment of who I am and be comfortable with it, because I think even kind of, if you're a professor, they assume like you know everything, which I don't have the answers to half of this. I wouldn't even say half. I don't have the answers to 90% of what's going on, right? Because there's a whole universe out there. But I think what people often get caught up in is that they don't want to say, I don't know.
Yep. I totally agree.
And I say that across the board. I'm going to say it about me.
Sure
but
enough.
I think people are so afraid to say, I don't know. And I find myself now, I'm so comfortable with being like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But you want to know something, Doc? I think that also goes back to, you know, and I say this a lot, self-accountability. You know what I mean? I think that, you know, a lot of people, you know, in this world have no type of self-accountability. You know what I mean? No one wants to start from, first of all, no one wants to be wrong, and no one wants to start from the bottom and literally work themselves up. You get what I'm saying? And I think when you look in the, and then another thing, no one wants to look. I wonder how many people look in the mirror actually at themselves. Like, I look in the mirror at myself, and I want to see the pit of my soul. You know what I mean? I want to see the flaws. You know what I mean? Because if I don't do that to myself, then I'm not going to be the best person that I know I can be, right? And I think if people had that type of mentality, you know, as a whole, we'd be better. You know what I mean? And I think that, I'm not going to say I don't understand why people just don't say, like you said, I don't know, or I need help, or I need to go talk to someone, or, you know, whatever the case might be. You know what I mean? And I just say, you know, self-accountability to me means a lot.
But I think too, like going into like whatever, whether it's your colleagues or the people you serve, I know for me personally, I'm looking to learn every day. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking to learn and grow. Like, I mean, you know, even for the people, again, the people I work with, you know what I mean? But I'm 40 now, so it's like I want to hear from your lens what's going on. Like, I know what's going on. You know what I mean? I think all of that is important, but I think it's about people. You got to see value in people to be able to do that. You know, and I ain't perfect, but I try to, you know, bring humility into any room that I'm in. Try to check my ego at the door in any room that I'm in, and know that it's in me not knowing something. I do know a lot, right? But it's also more that I don't know. You know what I mean? So me acknowledging that I don't know something doesn't mean that I'm, you know, in any way, you know, not
incompetent.
You know,
Right.
I'm not well versed, so like, please enlighten me, teach me, put something in me that's going to spark something to make me go research and learn. And I think that's the beauty of life, and for me anyway, right? It's continue to evolve and to be able to get better every day and learn things. And I feel like, you know, those teachers, right? Those people that's going to teach you something. You know, you don't know who they are. You can't really, you know, they come in all forms and all shapes. You know, I'm here for.
And I think, you know, I always wanted a solution. I never said it, but it's like, man, you know, I sit back and think about politics and DC mayor, things of that nature. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if you have any, you know, goals to be able to jump into politics, bro. But man, you need to go ahead and run for the mayor of the city, man, and you know, let me know, and I do whatever I can do to support you, bro. Like I always say that about you. If I don't say nothing else, I'm always thinking,
Right.
soon you need to
Yeah.
go ahead and run for mayor
Yeah.
of the city,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Nah, I
So I just want to throw
appreciate
that
it.
into the
Yeah.
atmosphere and salute you for that, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate that, brother. I receive that, bro. I don't know if I got no political aspirations at this point, but
Yeah.
no, that's definitely received. It's so much about about the grace of God in the last, I mean, probably over the last 10 years at this point, I've been able to impact political, decisions, right? If you will, policy, laws, whatever. I've been able to play a part in that, and I enjoy that, right?
Mhm.
I enjoy being able to help legislation, get introduced, passed. That's gonna help us in this city, right? But it's so much about that life that I don't know that I want, and if
Right.
I
Right.
continue to,
Right.
play
Right.
in the political process to help certain things and still kind of have, I got two little girls, man, that I want to watch grow up. And and I say that to say this, right? I know that, no, if I went into political office, there would be I don't think be anybody in the history of this town that would come into office anyway, probably aside from Marion Barry, that had a reputation of helping, being accessible, being, the name recognition, and again, but I was aside from, like, one thing that I probably would even add for me that Mr. Barry didn't have. Well, Mr. Barry wasn't from here, right? So I got like real connection, a deeper connection, because I'm from here and his family and his friends, right?
Mhm.
That being in office like that for me would really like make my life, I think, a living hell. I don't think that I would enjoy. It would be just too much. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy my
Yeah.
life too much to, like. But some people say, "But Tone, sometimes you might got to do it, but I don't know. People are considering what's the other side to that, and not to
Exactly.
mention just throw the politics, and not
Yeah.
to mention I'm still working on some things. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody
No, for
be saying
sure.
what they want to
For
say.
sure.
Nah,
For sure. For
but
sure.
you know what I'm
For
saying?
sure.
Like, it's another side to that
Oh,
thing.
I
I
get
don't think
it.
it's fine with my, who I am as a person, bro. I just don't know. I don't
Listen.
smile
And I
when I ain't
think,
happy. I'm
and I
happy a
think
lot, but
Tony,
I don't smile when I ain't happy.
and I
Right.
think Tony, when it comes down to it, if it's not you, someone of your caliber, but we definitely need someone with morals and principles like we have on this call right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I feel like that's the only way that we're going to be able to, succeed, as DC natives. You know what I mean? Because we can't keep
sure.
bringing in, we can't keep allowing other people to run our city.
Nah, for sure.
You
But
know what I
that's
mean?
also why
Somebody got to step
we can
up.
vote, but we got to do this too. Now, I receive that too, and I think I agree with you. But we also got to, as a voters block, I'm so happy that now, one thing I'm very proud about is that, Robert White introduced this legislation, the Commission on Reentry and Return to Citizen Affairs. And I used to be the chair, but I wasn't the chair when this got introduced, but I helped to lobby to help this Restore the Vote Act get passed, which is allowing our DC residents that's in the federal system will be able to vote in our elections, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I say that to say, if the people that's in the feds can vote, then we got to empower DC natives and let them out here to vote. And I'm not just talking about the presidential election. I'm talking about more specifically our local elections.
Local.
Yeah, for
Because
Exactly.
sure.
if we vote locally and show up as a voters block locally, I don't care if the person that's in the office from Iowa, they're going to know that they got to be accountable to us as voters, that we can change their reality. And really, I try to leverage, I think, and I can say this publicly because I know this to be I know this real. I know that people that's on that council, or even maybe people in leadership, they know that what I could do if I wanted to run for office, right? And I try to leverage that, right, to build
Right.
relationships with them, to let them know that you need to, have the motivation to introduce policy and legislation that's going to be beneficial to natives. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
And I guess that might be what my role is, but the other side of that, we need to run candidates, and I hope that. I know people may see me as somebody that could win or whatever, but I want to also show DC natives that you also can, that's something you want to do. You can do that. And if we show that we can bring young voters, returning citizens, our seniors, and we can vote and speak in one voice about certain candidates, depending on the ward, I think we can definitely be formidable politically, but we gotta be engaged. We can't keep sitting on the sidelines. And that's what we've been able to do, because by default, before we had just, politicians that were like homegrown, or politicians that were black. So people didn't really feel like they had to be involved politically. They, people was gonna do the right, quote unquote, the right. But we're in a different time. You know what I'm saying? We're in a different time now that people really have to adapt and adjust and get into the fold. One of the things about, 1,000 people move to DC a month, right? I think it is, right? Most move to place in America, or right, 1 and 2 for over the last like 5-6 years. But many of those people don't really participate in local politics. So still, the city still can be politically, we still have a lot of leverage, but we got to use it. You know what I mean? We got to use it. But when we look at Ward 7 and 8, and we getting on the midterm election, I think we had like 10% in Ward 8 and like 7%. I mean, 10% in Ward 7 and like 8% in Ward 8 or something like that. That's ridiculous.
So how do we raise those numbers, Tony? How do we get more people engaged, knowing that the numbers are like that?
Well, to Shay's point, I think because now in the primary though, you saw a significant uptick in voter turnout, even in COVID. But you had Trayon ran, right? That's his re-election, right? So I think one is having candidates that people want to vote for. I think that's one, right? But I think the other thing is showing people why it's important to participate and why it's important to vote. Why you can no longer sit on the sideline. How your council members impact your life. I mean, my father had the board of election had just sent out the voter registration forms to the feds. So my father called me yesterday and was saying that right. And he sent me an email too, telling me the most beautiful part about the email though was the conversation that he had with his celly, who like a young dude, and the young dude got 5 kids. So my father was telling him, like, don't you want better, good schools for your kids? Don't you want an opportunity for our people to stay in the city? Don't you want prison reform? Right? These things, this all starts with who's in office, and that's akin with us voting. And this, I think, is important that we start to have these conversations with people in their terms. Like for a lot of the guys that's in prison, the Second Look Act, right? With the IRA, I think it's IRA, like point, the third version of the IRA, which is now, if you commit a violent crime at 25, after serving a certain amount of time, the judge can look at your sentence again. Like in the feds, that's a hotbed issue. Everybody, what I'm saying, is concerned about that, right? But so for them, they understand that Kenya McDuffie first introduced IRA, then Charles Allen, who became the judiciary, the chair of the judiciary, came in and took it to another level, and now they're trying to take it to an even higher level. But again, the political process that really can affect people's family members. That really can affect people that's in prison, get them their freedom back. And I think these are the kind of things when we're talking about voting, how we got to talk to people, just like in the national politics, when you talk about, healthcare, when you talk about government subsidies, when you talk about, so whatever these issues, people vote from their own, situation. So I think we don't do a good enough job of speaking to the disconnected population about why they should vote. We just say our ancestors died, you should vote.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
So what I want somebody asked a question, and I think it's a great point. So I think people get caught up a lot of times in believing that if you're going to run for office, you need to be credentialed. And if it's anything that this show really tries to get at, is the solutions are going to come from the ground, as you mentioned in the opening clip. So, I want you to kind of explain that, it's not all about just people having credentialing, because I think people are fearful that, or apprehensive to move into that area when they may actually have the policy solutions that are needed. I'm thinking about my sister that's in Missouri. What's her name? Cori Bush. Got her name?
That's
right,
that's the one that won in Ferguson or in
the one that won in Ferguson. So people that are just really coming out of straight grassroots situation and actually becoming very successful and represent the community. So it doesn't have to be like you went and got a degree from Howard or you went to Harvard. Like you could literally just come out of the community that you're in and become a change agent.
Yes, sir. I mean, I think that first of all, I think we overstate that even the people that are credentialed, that they know so much more than you. Particularly
exactly.
People may have been lawyers or whatever. They weren't politicians. They didn't work on the issues. You may have the best knowledge, right? And I think that's why somebody like AOC is so important, right? She was a bartender. Yeah, she was educated, but she worked in bars, bars. She from the Bronx. I think she 29 years old. I think she is really been symbolic of what you're saying, Doc, that like, it's you, if you care and you know the issues, you know what I mean? And then you can learn as you go. And sometimes the perspective, the new perspective really is what's needed, because a lot of the people that have the experience or have been there or for a long time, they missing the mark. They're out of touch with what's going on now. So I think Congresswoman AOC, I think she's a great example of that. The sister you mentioned in Ferguson, a great example of that. And particularly if you're talking about we run on a ticket of how do we touch the people, you need somebody that's from the people, you know what I mean, to really represent that. And I hope that people in everywhere, but particularly in DC, understand that. But and start where you are. Start building in your community.
Exactly.
You start building where you are. You can leave from where you are. I think people think it's some route like, I got to become an ANC commissioner. I got to be a citizen. And I'm not knocking that, because that's part of it, because you learn the government process. But I think I've also tried to model that you can really like impact change and be, unconventional. And I think we living in a time of that, right? I think we living in a time where it's about, as long as I do think that it's important that people understand that you do have to know what you're getting into. You have to align yourself with people. You gotta, but don't think that you have to have had all this like other stuff, because again, you got people that really, most of those people that's on the council and all that stuff, when they got on the council, that really was a change in career for them. And they had to learn as they went. You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't you learn? Or you can do the same thing. It's not like it's so if he just lost but like Brandon Todd, who was the Ward 4 council member, like he was one of the people, he was like, I think he was Bowser's chief of staff when she was the Ward 4 council member. Right. So like he was in politics, you know what I'm saying? But like, Kenya McDuffie worked in the Justice Department and then worked at the Attorney General office before he became Trayon. Same thing. Trayon is the actual like real example of like activist to council member, right?
Right.
Robert White, I know he did work in Eleanor Holmes' Northern office. So did Kenya before. Rosso, they worked in the Congresswoman's office. But I mean, what I'm saying is that like you can do it, you know what I mean? And again, I talk about AOC on the national level, but definitely Trayon is an incredible example locally of how to galvanize the whole community from an activist space and leverage that and transition into politics.
Right. And I would also shout out to Kenya McDuffie for a number of things. One, the pushing of the NEAR Act, which is behind a lot of the programs that we're seeing right now on the ground that's dealing with gun violence in DC. And also being innovative enough, even though it didn't get passed, but Kenyon was the first council member that I've seen nationally to push for a gun violence research center funded by the DC government at a time when gun violence research wasn't being funded by the federal government and hadn't been funded by the federal government since 1996. Like, that was impressive to me.
Like, listen,
straight up.
People will say, like, so Kenyon, my council member, right, in my ward, right. What people don't know, so people say, sometimes when I shout Kenyon out, like I'm being biased, right? But what people don't understand, first of all, Kenyon and I didn't necessarily get off on the right foot, right? We didn't like have it was like a point of contention. I was like, yo, man, look, man, we need this in this neighborhood, and I don't feel like, you know, Bob, you paying enough attention to X, Y, and Z. But from the conversations, built a relationship, man, and I watched this guy. You know, and I think also this is the thing. You got people don't understand this either about Kenyon. Kenyon inherited a war that came, you know, you talking about a legacy. You talking about Harry Thomas Sr. and Harry Thomas Jr., right? In this ward as a council member, right? He came into that and they were like really extroverted, large personalities. I mean, beloved, right? And so, you know, when you get that for 30 years or so or more, people expect that. So the next council member was supposed to be there. But so you don't fit that narrative. People feel like you don't care or you not as engaged. But see that, like, again, and I was guilty of that too, but till I understood how he worked, you know what I mean? How he's methodical, how he really wants to know about what he's getting into, and that he's a legislative wizard. When you talk about ban the box, when you talk about Near Act, when you talk about the IRA, when you talk about the DC Native Day, when you talk about the go-go legislation to be an official music and getting $3 million for go-go bands and all, I'm serious. Anything that's really substantial around Black people in the city, King he did it. Like seriously,
you gotta hold. You gotta.
I'm not.
Trust me,
for real.
I've lived in multiple places. I've never seen a council member push that much legislation that was that impactful on a local. Nah.
Real, especially.
I honestly say that.
Yeah, me too. Because I'm telling you, know, I'm impartial. Like I don't really do that. And this wasn't the Kenyon McDuffie commercial.
No, it's not.
Real.
You're not here to promote Kenyon McDuffie, but I'm just saying.
I'm just keeping it real. That when you talk about, you can if anybody got it, all you got to do is look it up, though. You know what I'm saying? It's not even about. It's not an opinion. We're not even. I didn't even say if I like him or not. I'm just talking about what he's done, and it's you can't dispute it. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's been incredible how he's shown, really. Because council members, again, I think in the mind, particularly of poor Black people, was about, you know, our scope in this city I'm talking about was really framed by Marion Barry, right? Or people like Harry Thomas and Harry Thomas Jr. It was framed in that, you know, sort of cloaked in how they did it. But when you talk about somebody that you forget that the role of a council member, you are a legislator. That's your job. To introduce legislation, you're a lawmaker, and I'm just simply saying that Kenyon McDuffie, especially for interest in things that's impacting Black people, particularly Native Blacks, nobody has done what he's done, and it's cool to see that coalition. I'm not saying we're always on the same page, but it's beautiful for me anyway to see the Trayon Whites, the Robert Whites, you know, on that council along with Kenyon McDuffie. Man, it makes me proud.
And I'll just tell you, like, and then we're going to move on to the next segment. But this is what I want to say in reference to this whole issue around gun violence and his open door policy. There was an article written in the Washington Post, might have been 2016, 2017, and it was on the Near Act, and it was explaining how there were going to be trauma social workers that were going to be in the trauma units that were working directly with young brothers that we work with in the hospitals that come in that had been injured. And I saw it and I was like, I'd already been building the program at PG Hospital. It wasn't up officially kind of launched, but it was in the developmental stages. I emailed him and I think I might have been in contact with Silas first, I believe. Yeah. And I think within like a week, I was down there talking to him about the whole concept. He could verify this story. And from that point on, that conversation expanded into what you see right now with the hospital violence intervention programs that are around the city. Like it was that quick to translate. So I think what we're saying, and what I really love about this conversation and talking to you is all of these things that we're saying, people deal with gun violence. We're not directly saying it, but all of the things we saying touch on it. We don't have to speak and say it's gun violence, gun violence, gun violence, because all of these things are relevant, I think, ultimately to what this show is about, to kind of address it from a grassroots, but then translating that into a policy level.
And Doc, what you said and what I mentioned about the points of contention for Keegan and I when he first took office, while I was reaching out and saying it was about gun violence in my community. I was like, hey, bro, we need resources. We gotta do something about the gun violence, in this community. You know what I'm saying? So yes, gun violence is very, and again, somebody like Kenyon too is from here. He's been impacted by gun violence. You know what I mean? He's lost family and friends to gun violence. You know what I mean? And so I know that gun violence is something that's really important. And again, but also somebody who became, a prosecutor, right? So, again, sometimes you can, public safety. I think gets lost too in this conversation around poor people. Is that we don't want public safety, right? Like we want public safety as well. We might not
exactly.
to go. We feel like there should be other ways that we pursue public safety, but we want public safety also. You know what I'm saying?
Say that? I think Fox said that. Like we want protection too. We want to feel safe
too, for sure. I think every human being, right? I think
to add to your point, Tony, a lot of guys that I came in contact with, at the hospital, they said, man, only reason I carry guns is for protection. I'm not trying to go out and shoot nobody. I'm trying to not be the one shot laying up dead and my mother crying over my body.
Right. And Tony said that it's about defense, right?
Facts. That's it. But that's never the story. Nobody talk about the context. But the Kenosha, the young man in Kenosha, that's gonna be a part of his narrative, though. Right?
He's on the defense. Stand your ground, right?
Yeah, he stood his ground. He's on defense. The president of the United States spoke to the fact that he feared for his life. If that ain't jury tampering, I don't know what is.
Come on, bro. And you got to look at policies and how unequally they're applied. Stand your ground. Castle doctrine. It works for whites who are exercising their Second Amendment right, but if brothers can't use a stand your ground defense, right? So the exact same thing that you're saying, that brothers are saying, yo, I'm carrying this gun because I'm on defense, like that doesn't apply to us in terms of from a policy standpoint, right? But if you were to apply that same analogy, let's just say to Rittenhouse in that shooting in Kenosha, it applies then. He's on defense.
And you want to know what's crazy, Doc? And I'm gonna say this publicly about MPD, and this is just my personal opinion about him. I'm 32 years old. I've been in this city for 32 years. I've never lived anywhere else for a long period of time. I've never seen a Caucasian or white person pulled over in handcuffs sitting on the curb. Ever.
Yeah.
And I'm 32 years old. Now ask me how many times I've seen people of my color, of my gender, pulled over, sitting on the curb with knees in their back. Like, what does that say about our city, our police department? You know what I mean? Our mayor, because ultimately the mayor is over the police department, is over the chief. And I feel like for me to say that, it hurts, bro. Like that shit honestly hurts. I've never seen a Caucasian person pulled over on the side of the road in handcuffs ever. And I've been here 32 years.
So, Chad, I think is excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to skip over that, but now that you brought it up. So the book Locking Up Our Own, right? Set in DC, written by James Foreman, which was basically about how the whole carceral apparatus in DC, at least at that time the time period he was writing about, was comprised of Black people, judges, police officer, police commissioner, prosecutors, everybody was Black. And DC had highest incarceration rate in the country. So we got to speak truthfully to that conversation, right? And I'm gonna put this out there. So we work. Shout out to Judge Williams. We work with Judge Williams Center, which I'm also faculty affiliate with, and a former federal judge that was in Greenbelt in the federal court district in Greenbelt. He recently sent tons of black men away for years, some forever, right? And now, in retrospect, is looking back and realizes the damage that he's caused, and now is working towards, the liberation of black men and the policies that put them there. But I think he's kind of symbolic to me. And his story was written in the Washington Post about one of the guys that he actually sent to prison under sentencing guidelines, and now they go around and they speak around the country. So I think his story is symbolic of the fact that he kind of represented that narrative, right, of the black federal judge that basically sent thousands of his own people to prison.
Yeah.
And like, how do in terms of, because we talk about truth and reconciliation a lot, right? Which is weird, because when I think about truth and reconciliation commissions, which we're trying to get off the ground right now, and I often think about the actors who are in it, I never really imagine in my mind, when I'm thinking about it, it's always I'm framing the actors in it as white. But you can also have the actors in it that I want to hold accountable in certain contexts are black.
Yeah, but Doc, see, the crazy part about, like, to me, when you think about, how black people in those positions, see, the system operates how it operates. I don't care who the players are, right?
Exactly.
I think that's one, right? But then two, there's like this, I think black police officers, judges, whomever, feel like they have to be heavy-handed to prove to the overall system that they're not partial, where white judges can be partial to a white defendant all the time.
All the time.
But with us, it's because, again, the system itself, that systemic stuff that we talk about, it even play out when you get black people in those positions. Because the last thing a black judge wants to be accused of is being lenient. That's the last thing, is soft on black criminals and all that. So, it's like that thing where we kind of maybe harder on ourselves than somebody else.
And that's what we arrived at with Meek Mill.
Yes.
Right.
That's exactly. Yes.
Perfect example of it. Right.
Absolutely.
Poster child for that.
Yep. She was trying to make a point to him. You know what I'm saying? She was trying to make a point to even whoever she felt like was watching her. Right. Whoever she felt like, was paying attention. Would she just let this celebrity rapper guy go? And she was like, nah, his ass going to jail. And I think that plays itself out. So it's like, for us as a black person before a judge, it's like, you between a rock and a hard place. You get a white judge, you may obviously see that play out, right? Where he throw your life away. But getting a black judge may not make you feel any better, because then that black judge may feel like the same thing, like you a disgrace to the race, you playing into the narrative. Like, I had conversations with people, like even with me working within, supervision agency, right? So I work in law enforcement, right? Even though I'm not on the law enforcement side, but I work in law enforcement and talking to some of my colleagues, and these are black people feeling like, I'm trying to set an example for our race, and they keep wanting to do and they could have made the same decisions I made, and they just want to break the law, and you know what I mean? And you got to acknowledge, like, how you hear where they coming from. But again, don't ever take off the table what's like influencing that person's decisions. You know what I'm saying? What are the other factors? And I think sometimes when we get in position, that gets lost.
Right. Exactly. So
hold on, but the scariest thing is the black people that's in these agencies that's saying that to you, Tony, they are in charge, or they have control over someone's freedom. And that's what fucks me up. You know what I mean? Like, they actually have control over someone's freedom.
Yeah.
So it's like, are we giving the power are we giving too much power to the wrong people? Do the vetting services need to be a little better? Because even making comments like that makes me feel like they're being one-sided.
But then they'll
You know what I
say they don't have the power. The person got the power of their freedom, especially on the
Yeah.
supervision side. Well, and you know, me seeing, like, I'm gonna give you an example. I'm gonna give you an example, right? It ain't fun. It's kind of funny though. Like one of my homies on supervision, right? And he was telling me how petty his PO was, right? It's my first after the agency. This is 11 years ago. But he telling me how petty his PO was and how she on his back and how she playing with his freedom and dot, 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 dot. And I had an opportunity he got, you know, to be able to look at, you know, his situation. I mean, I talked, you know, she was my, we were in the same office. She's like, Tony, come here. Look. And he didn't tell me he gave her like 50 dirty yarns.
Yeah.
Nah, for real. He did not share that with me.
Right.
So this woman who has children and a family, and she's being judged by how she does her job. How can she justify keeping you in freedom after she didn't gave you every chance in the book? But then,
Tony, you know,
I'm not defending that. No, let me finish. I want you to know though, but I'm just my point though. Not that I don't disagree with you, but my point is that I'm just saying that there are very other variables, right? And that it has multiple sides and multiple lenses. I don't think that you got a lot of assholes, right, in any job, right? But by and large, though, I know that most of the people that I've seen really want people to do the right thing. They're not trying to take people freedom. Like I think a lot of it got to be about but we got to be more in terms of the practitioners, the law enforcement folk. Their lens, their scope has to be adjusted in the sense of understanding the variables that's going on in people's lives, and that you're not going to make nobody do the right thing. You have to assist and resource and love people to the point where they can make better decisions. You can't make ain't nobody sent to jail. Like you ain't gonna be, you gotta do this, Jay. If you don't do this, I'm violating you. That ain't moving you. Especially when you dealing with addiction, you dealing with problems, you dealing with trauma and stress. Well, we gotta be like, yo, how can I get you? How can I help you? I'm in this with you. You know what I mean? That's the focus I feel like that needs to be taken.
No, I agree. And I also think that, you know, people in those type of positions, they need to be able to talk to someone too, right? They're not exempt from talking to that therapist or that counselor, right? Because my biggest fear, Tony, is that they bring in their personal baggage into the professional world. And, you know, in return to that, your personal baggage and how you feel in that day can affect someone else's freedom. You know what I mean? And I've worked with, you know, a couple of POs myself, you know, through the program, and they did phenomenal jobs. But a lot of conversations that we had together was, they said they leave their personal feelings and business at home. You know what I mean? And they said they talk to people, they talk to therapists, you know, twice a week. So they get that baggage, you know, off of their shoulders, right? And that what scares me is when it comes down to law enforcement in general, are they getting the necessary help that they need, right, to do their job the correct way, right?
Nah, and you know why they can't.
Spot on.
A lot of times they can't go, like, even if they wanted to, when they go get it, it's seen as they get stigmatized on their job for getting it. So even though they might want to go get the therapy, a lot of them don't go to, so they'll go to their pastor, right? And this is no criticism of churches, but I think a lot of times people, when they have no alternative, they rely on the church, you know, for counseling. Church is not often prepared to deal with the many mental health issues that people have. Spiritually, cool, right? But from a mental health standpoint, not so much. But what you'll find in the research is that they'll go to their pastor because they can keep that quiet. But they think that going to their pastor will actually help them. And what I want to say about that is, from a personal standpoint, you know, to say, like, my brother did that. Like he went to his pastor to talk about his mental health issues and ultimately ended up, you know, taking his own life, right? Because he didn't go to a mental health professional. He thought, all right, I think if I could go to my pastor and talk about, my pastor to walk me out of this. That's not always the case. And I want to get that across so many people, like that's not going to save you.
Mm-hmm.
Understand? So, I think a lot of to these officers' credit, in their defense, I'm probably last person to defend, go on the line and defend a lot of police officers, but I will say that, on the job that they work with the whole concept of toxic masculinity and having to present this facade that they want to go talk to somebody, but if they do, that's going to be a blemish on their record. Like then sergeant going to be like, oh, you might be a little crazy.
So let me ask you this then, Doc. Is it safe to say if it's too hot in the kitchen, get out the motherfucker?
I mean, true. Or to change the way that you even approach mental health on that job. Like in the same way, with the trauma that we work, traumatic situations we work in, like we even seen it in ourselves when we did our own little we conducted our own little seminar. We were asking people around the table, had they ever dealt with their trauma? That's all in trauma units that we work with, and everybody was silent. Nobody was like, nah, yeah, I go to
I think that goes back to the self-accountability part when it came to the officers, right? If you know you got issues and you know that something not right, you know what I mean, go get help. That's self-accountability at its finest. Fuck what anybody else thinks. You know what I mean? You need help as a person, right? And it's the same motherfuckers who carrying the guns that's killing people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the kid. I forgot what state. Look at the kid or the guy who got shot in his back. What was that? 6-7 times.
Yeah, Jason.
Right?
His name Blake. Yeah, Jason Blake.
But I think right, and I think it goes back to the whole concept of why I always try to talk about structural violence, because structural violence is when you engage in practices that are preventable harm or avertible deaths. So when the system is engaging in practices when they know that they could prevent somebody from dying or avert it, but they allow that shit to happen because they allow some wild ass cop who already got like 58, 59 citations against violations against them, know that he's totally off his rocker going out there with a gun. That's violent. Even before they allowed him to shoot the person 7 times, allowing him to be on that job is a form of violence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we got to jump to, we're gonna run through this 2-minute drill with these clips for you. We're gonna give you 2 minutes to answer every single clip that you see. Let's roll them.
Mommy, look! Hold on. Who? Skylar! Where? Right there! Lyric, ain't nobody in the playground. I just see the little girl playing right there. But I see her right there! Oh, you guys talking about from like 2-3 months ago when that Skylar had died right there? Yeah, but I still see her. No, she's not right there. It's okay, baby. It's okay. It's okay. It's just a car. It's just a truck. I wanna go. Okay, we don't have to stay. We can go. Let's go. Let's just go back home.
I see the young girl, she's traumatized. Her mother don't see what she sees. She gonna see that for the rest of her life. Come on, young brothers. Think about the kids, man.
My black life matter, my black life matters, my black life matters like yours. So please, black man, don't try to take mine, and I promise I won't take yours. Listen, we gotta do better as a community. Start holding each other accountable for all this senseless killing. Kids are being hurt, mothers are being hurt, the communities are hurt. It's a whole lot of trauma. So let's do our best. Start holding each other accountable. No slides on.
Come on, y'all. We gotta stop this guy and his killing. I'm scared to come out my house thinking I'm gonna get shot the minute I come out. My kids can't even play in the neighborhood or the playground. Like, come on, y'all. We gotta do better as a community. Peace and love. Please don't shoot. Think about us.
Shout out to Rollo, no slide zone. What you think, Tom? 2 minutes.
Yeah, man. I just good brothers, Rollo, Wayne, they sent that to me, man. That's an incredible piece. I think it's really showing how our children and our women have been not only victims of late, right? I think that was the first part of it. That's important. But on top of that, sort of the trauma, man, that's having, particularly on our children. And we in our communities, we see things that we can't unsee. You know what I mean? I think it's a very deep characterization of what it really does to you when you grow up in a community where you see death, particularly at a young age, man. So yes, no slide zone. I hope for the rest of the summer. I mean, well, the summer almost over, but going into the fall and the winter, that every neighborhood in DC can be a no slide zone.
No slide zone. And also shout out to Rollo and Wayne for also emphasizing bringing the rules back and trying to bring some rules back to the neighborhoods. Right. So next slide.
Oh man. So that's a picture of me and my father, man. I was that's 1996. I was 16 years old. He was in Lombard, California. So and that was the first time I had seen him since I was 12. Right. So I think it's really indicative of like DC inmates being all across the country in the federal system. Most times, families won't be able to go to California, to see. So those bonds can be forever impacted. I'm just thankful that we were able to stay connected, but person being 3,000 miles away. And then I ain't see him again until I think 99 after that.
Wow.
Yeah, because you can't just jump, you ain't just jumping out to California.
Plane, right.
And I think most people in my position in my community probably would never went out there. So I went out there in 92, 96, and 99. He was out there for 13 years. And I went out there 3 times, So yeah, growing up in that time, DC murder capital of the United States, man. I be looking at them pictures. I just thank God. I feel like the luckiest man on earth every day, man. But we still fighting. Hopefully my father will gain his freedom at some point. We 31 years in, man. Look at that. I was 16. I'm 40 now. Even that picture, that was 24 years ago. You know what I'm saying? When I look at that, I'm like, wow, my father will be 58 next month. I'm 40. He be 58 October 18th.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Yeah, man. So, yeah, that's the deep one right there.
All right. Next one.
Yeah, I think, hopefully that sets precedence, right? I hope they do it in that state, and then all the states do it, and then the federal government does it. I think it's important. I think, for real, if there's no wealth transfer in this country, if there's no amends made, our ancestors built this country literally. I think people, often when we talk about slavery, in terms of it being such a distant thing, an old thing, right? Not, recognizing how what slavery created how slavery accelerated this country. This is a young country. For this to get to the point where it is the most powerful country in the world in such a short period of time is literally linked to slavery, right? People could talk about the world wars that we fought and all that, but our ability to be a player on the national scene, to be a country where we had wealth, that came specifically from us, you know what I mean? And that's undeniable. And this country has to make amends for that. And it needs to be a wealth transfer of some sort, a significant one too.
And I always emphasize that in, the racial wealth gap, and you and I have talked about this, Tony, and shown the stats for it before. But for a white household, the wealth for average white household in DC is $284,000 compared to $3,500 of wealth for a black household. So we're going to talk about reparations and the legacy of the racial wealth gap. We can't address any of this life after the gunshot and all the things that we're talking about without addressing the inequality in the wealth gap.
Right, and how they're yeah, it's right, Doc, and they're interconnected. This is not an island. It's not separate from that.
No,
and just to think that in DC specifically, and this is the largest disparity in the country. White Washingtonians outlive black Washingtonians by 15 years. Just think about that for a minute.
It's crazy.
a significant for about 15 years, man.
And I didn't, that's a fact. I didn't even know that. So when I'm talking about structural violence, that's exactly what I mean. When you're able to take 15 years off of another racial group's life, and they are dying from early mortality much more earlier than another group, you have to call that violent. Like, we could talk about people getting shot with guns, but man, you taking 15 years off of somebody's life and you're not even using a gun.
Yep. And I knew that's before they even talking about the quality of the time on the, but it's
exactly.
all it's economic,
exactly.
man.
Exactly.
Economic. Reparations.
Exactly.
Sure
enough. So shout out to Barbara Lee, and for people, I just want to put this out there. University of Maryland, Department of African American Studies, we're doing a reparations series for the entire year. We will be doing 4 panels starting in October and discussing why African Americans should be getting reparations, which will ultimately culminate into the bill HR 40, which will be on the federal level. And then in the state of Maryland, there is the Harriet Tubman Community Investment Act, which is a reparations bill for all Black residents that live in the state of Maryland. Next slide. We got something to go with it.
Just in the book, I go into schools and I'm lecturing and we vibing around the book, and they're telling me, like, man, Tony, I'm going through that exact same thing. And the teacher's like, oh my God, I had no idea. Or the teacher's like, I had no idea they could sit still for an hour. Right? It's like, this is unbelievable. Like, can you come every day? I get that request a lot. But like, they got it in them. You just got to bring it out of them. You got to tap into it. And part of it, though, is just that acknowledgement. Right? Like, no, I don't think people don't want sympathy. People don't want a pity party, though. But like, we can acknowledge people's pain, though. A lot of times what we do, like personally and in this country, we write it off, right? Like, we say shit like everybody got problems. And we do. That don't mean I can't say I feel you, bro. Like, yeah, that shit tough. Like, sometimes that's enough for people.
And I put that up there. I know we couldn't get through it this summer, but I had to post that because, bro, you may not run for mayor, but you for damn sure gotta be a professor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
you know that's coming from the heart.
Nah, bro, that's something, Doc, that I did, again, I receive, and I really want to do that. I think I enjoy every opportunity to be able to be before, so that the next leaders, people that are going into, the workforce, going into specifically, doing things, working in the spaces, and we work in trying to arm them with the tools and the information that can help them on their journey, and to be able to have the prospect of being a professor at the University of Maryland is a great honor, something that I'm looking forward to. I ain't gonna say that I want it. I can't wait to be in my class and invite you in as the guest speaker. You know what I'm saying?
I can't wait, bro. I can't wait. That's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, but I think that just even talking back to that, go ahead, Booby, man, great. I'm sorry, but shout out to Booby, man. You know what I mean? To talk about just the impacts of COVID and what we've seen, like what did with these health disparities and how our community is fragile, from so many directions, right? And so much of that has to do with, it's not just about, people talk about like even with that, like the food that we eat, but it's like as if there's like no, even back to slavery, like there's no connection to some even the food that we grow up eating in that could potentially be the cause of some of these issues with heart disease or diabetes, et cetera, right? That's a direct linkage to slavery and what we were forced to eat. You know what I mean? Nobody even talks about that. It's so, again, for us, we kind of buy into that. And then you see COVID again in DC, 75% of the COVID deaths I think it was 77, something like 70% of the COVID deaths were Black people, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. It's 46% Black. So like back in the day, and Che, to your point about the pulling over again, I'm just really quickly. when you look at the people arrested, the people incarcerated in DC is in the 90th percentile. Now, when we were growing up, that made sense because it was just like it was us. But now, even now, we only 46% of the population. It's still chocolate city when it comes to all of the issues. And I think again that really, when you look at who's poor, when you look who's unemployed, when you look at who's incarcerated, who's victims of violent crime, who's homeless, when you look at all of those things, right? Who's food insecure, it's still in the 90th percentile black. I mean, what's not talked about enough. Not to say that our brown brothers and sisters don't go through nothing, but in DC, we probably got the most thriving, Latinx population in America, for real. Like, really do. So it's like, what is it about black people from DC anyway? What is it about us and our conditions and our situation that is preventing us from attaching to all of the progression that's going on in our city? So yeah, and I look forward to sharing, some of my, my mindset around that, perspective around that, with the students, man, in the winter semester, whatever, winter break, whenever I get a chance to get before them. I'm really looking forward to that, Doc. And thank you, man.
I just wanted to highlight again for everybody that's watching, what you see here kind of in that turquoise is ASAP. I think it's 490, 99 or 98, but it's Prison Pandemic, which is going to be taught by yours truly, Dr. Tony Lewis right here. So let's move on to the next slide.
That's in your class, Doc.
Hey, I like that jacket.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, he's sharp. Yeah. That's when you put in work. I just want to give everybody, you put in work. This is what happens after the class. So if you ever come and see my class and this don't happen to you, you ain't do your job.
Yeah, man. Wow. I'm a private prison. I got space. Right? I got space. And matter of fact, you know what? I might just build a new joint. Right? Because I know they're going to be filled up. If I'm a voter in those states, my uncle got a job at the jail. My auntie got a job at the jail. My cousin who got the vending machine company got a contract with the jail. The person that run the laundry got a contract with the jail. You get where I'm going with this? For these rural communities, that's called an economic boom. Right? So when it's time for me to go vote, I'm voting for whoever. I don't know about all the other shit they want to do and all that, but I'm voting for them if they're going to keep this going. So I'm just trying to give kind of a hello, November. So as people continue to talk about and ask about why do these people support certain, candidates or whatever the case may be, again, people, that's wild. Damn, yeah, people voting from there. Yeah, because the law that law and order perspective creates jobs in places where factories and things used to exist, right? The law and order has led to economic boom. It's led to jobs, family sustaining opportunities and jobs. I'm going to support that. If you visit these places, you'll be like, oh, well, I held all these, I had these mindset. These people are, poor, ignorant, white trash. This is because I hear people talk about like that, right? And you go to these places and then you start to see, because without this, these people ain't got nothing. You know what I mean? And people are able to manipulate the fact that, don't have, so they try to not tell them they're like, yeah, I don't have nothing else for you, right? We really forgot about you. So now if I can make that group of people feel seen, right? Because I felt that these people were in the midst, they felt invisible for, decades. While their factories was closing, while their mines were closing or whatever it is, as a person coming from an oppressed state or coming from a community that's forgotten to a certain degree, I just try to step outside of myself and how I feel, and like really I can identify with why people would feel that way, right? And if somebody is coming to bring me some if I'm in the desert and somebody's bringing me a cup of water, you know what I mean? That's
exactly.
I think a lot of Appalachian region, Middle America, not to mention stoking all the racial stuff, but I think past that, you know what I mean? I think these did, and I think from a if you do play Democrat and Republican, I think that's very clear to me. That's how even Hillary Clinton lost a lot of them type of states, because she come to tell them how they was changing energy and closing, even
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
didn't go at all.
Yeah.
Didn't go at all. You know what I mean? And it's funny, and that's what I was kind of sharing with the I got a line in the book, sharing with the class. I got a line in the book where I say I watch prison coal and steel country become prison country.
Yeah.
And that's where that conversation, derived from. And that's real. That's real, that federal prisons and state prisons, but federal prisons are heavily populated. It probably the heaviest concentration of federal prisons is in the Appalachian region, right? From Tennessee through Kentucky all the way up to Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? It's federal prisons all along Appalachia. And once upon a time, you had steel mills and coal mines,
And coal miners. And that's why it's called the prison industrial complex. What I wanted to ask you is kind of it's tangential to this, but I really want to ask you, like, what is your writing process? Like, what was the writing process to even dive into writing a book? Because I think a lot of people want to write books and they say it kind of in theory, but never do it in practice. So what was the writing practice? What was the writing, motivation and style and level of discipline that you needed to have in order to even achieve writing a book?
Yeah, word, man. So really, as I mentioned, how my father went to jail when I was 9, and from 9 to 22 he was in California. So very early on, my mother made it a point to make me write him letters, and in those letters I had to be incredibly descriptive, and it just became sort of that's how we communicated, right? So my writing style and my ability to be a writer and paint vivid pictures and bring a reader into where I was at really started in me trying to do that with my dad, right? Trying to describe what was going on in my life, what was going on in outside, what was going on, you know what I mean? And what happened at my graduation. So when I got a chance to write the book, a lot of the stories that's in the book really came directly from, letters that I had written to him, honestly. And then I was able to collaborate. I got with my man Kevin Reeves, who's a writer, by trade, to help me, respect the genre, right, and really, produce a product that could be in a University of Maryland classroom, right, that a professor like yourself will feel confident enough to put it in as required reading. But really, my writing style and my ability to write really came from those letters, and then me teaching, returning citizens, returning from the community. And I think that helped a lot too. And me being able to speak to people that from various backgrounds and different, being able to produce something that everybody could sink their teeth into, because, being able to be a facilitator, slash teacher for all of those years really helped me hone that skill. So I think the two things together is what really, what I represent.
Hey Tony, so off-brain question, but you just said it. How many letters you think you didn't wrote? Over, because you said your father been locked up 31 years.
Yeah, I mean, just to him.
You don't know the exact number,
bro. I mean, I could guess, right, a guesstimate, because you gotta think. I was just specifically talking about my dad, but my uncles, my cousins. And as we got older, all my friends, so like my my aunts, like I've been communicating with people in jail. Like, man, I probably didn't wrote, man, bro. I probably didn't write, man. I don't even know. Like I would have to say at least 20,000 letters, bro. Like collective.
Wow.
I had, to. Like, I mean, you think about all the time when they lock down and they can't call, you know, so this is pre-technology, pre-email, anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, my Uncle Gregory who ain't come home until I was 14. If I grew up, even before my dad went to jail, I was writing him. Some of my first ability to write. My mother, you know, and I thank God too for my family. You know, we grew up in sort of this way where we forget people when they go to jail. Like we supported them through like my interaction. A lot of people say, damn, you roll with your father, man, all these years. But like in my family, on my mother's side, my maternal side, you know what I mean? That's what I was taught. We was driving up in the mountains of Lewisburg, you know, to see my uncle was far back as I remember. Like if you people follow me on Instagram, you see I post a picture. We in a visiting hall. I'm 4 years old in a federal visiting hall. You know what I'm saying? Like this has been a part of my whole life, and that you always keep the people that's incarcerated a part of your life. And back then, if it wasn't a visit, it was really a letter, you know, pictures.
And the crazy thing about that is that my Uncle Kendall, man, he doing 60 years right now. And, you know, every time I talk to him, man, he just wanted to be so, like, he wants every detail of, like, how my day goes, you know, how the month goes. You know, he just want to be indoctrinated into, you know, my life, right? And, you know, I always thought about why he asked so many questions. You know what I mean? And, you know, being in a situation where I got into some trouble and I'm definitely ain't doing no time like that. But by you just saying, they trying to be a part of the real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they trying to
you bring them out here.
Exactly.
And please get Kendall my regards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, please get Kendall my regards, man. That's a big homie to me too. You know what I'm saying? So like,
definitely real.
You know,
man.
I think that's one of the things that, you know, gets lost in terms of, you know, a lot of people know people incarcerated, but you know, a lot of people don't do time with them though. You know, You know, one of my uncle just came home last Tuesday from he had life without parole, and he got his time cut. So thank God he came home, right? And it was amazing to me that he called, he left me a message, and man, I was I'm just saying the impact that doing time with people have on you. I was like, damn, I missed this call. I'm listening to the message on the speaker, and my wife was like, why don't you just call him back? And I was like, damn, like, yeah, if he home, I can call him back. I got to wait for him to call because you know, the last 20 years and all, you know what I'm saying? If I miss his call, I can't call him back. You know what I'm saying? And it's that kind of stuff that show the impact that you know, really had. He thought that was hilarious, though. He just thought that was the funniest thing because he's like, damn, Slug, they got you too. I'm like, yeah, they got me because I'm just so used to that. Like that, if you miss somebody, if you miss a call from jail, you know what I'm saying? You can't call them back. You know, people that don't deal with that don't really understand that. But yeah, that was a aha moment for me. Like, wow, he's free. I can call him back. You know, that shit brought tears to my eyes. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, on one end, it was like, I'm so happy that I can call him back. You know, it also makes you reflect on all the days that you couldn't, and that the fact that I can't call my cousins back or my father back or my homies back. You know, and yeah, man. So that was deep for me.
I just want to say to everybody, yo, that's a required reading. Slug, as you can see, was signing after my class as part of my syllabus and a required reading for my class. So if you haven't picked it up, go pick that up. And you know, I actually used your class. I used it in another class too last semester. But amazing book, man. So last but not least, this is the last clip, and we funny with it. So we want to ask you, because everybody been watching Versus, I'm sure all of America by this point. So Tony, you're a hip hop head.
Facts.
You had to pick your Versus battle. What two people would you pick and why?
Ah, goodness. Now that's
tough.
I mean, for me, man, I think I go. Y'all know I'm a super Jay-Z fan, but I think that'll be. I'ma go. Yeah, I'm gonna go Jay-Z. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Jay-Z Drake. I'm gonna go Jay-Z in a versus battle. I mean, if I would, I mean, and then yeah, I'm gonna go. I think that would be a cool. I think that'll be a competitive battle, not like lyrically, but just song wise. I think that'll
Right.
be competitive. You know what I'm saying? I would like to see a versus though, do verses, right, and not songs, right? And then I would like to see a Jay-Z Nas battle with just verses though.
Just the verses.
Just the verse. I think
That would
song
be
wise, you see what I'm saying? Where it's just the
I'm feeling that.
verse. Yeah, that's what I would really. That's what I would.
Nah,
really
that would be dope.
So
yeah,
look,
they get it on the song wise, but if we just did like verse, that would be dope to me. That'll be
Tony. So I got one more question for you, man. Since we talking about music, man, you know when they tried to mute DC, what was your first thought, bro?
Yeah, well, we not having it. Like, and that's why I sprung right into action. Like for real. Like that literally Ron Mo called, bro. I'll never forget that. Ron Mo called me. First, the dude, Tone P, who a music producer, he called me like the day before. But I didn't really take it. I it was at night, and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. But then Mo called me like 10 o'clock the next morning, and it was giving me like sort of the details coming directly from the guy at the store or whatever, right? And it's also interesting. And I'm gonna be really quick with this, but like sometimes you hear that's like a random dude telling me something about something happened at University of Maryland, and then Doc called me and said the exact same thing. But I'm gonna hear from Doc differently because it's in Doc's lane. Like he know it. Not that I don't think I knew what he was talking about, but it just didn't hit me the same way, right? So anyway, when Mo said that, so Mo said, "Can you come up to the store?" And we came up there, you know, and then Tone P came. The store owner had called Tone P too, so we had a meeting. And then the lady Natalie Hopkinson, who Mo knows, she a Howard University professor, came, and really that was the formulation that day of the Don't Mute DC movement, because they had already created a petition, but then once I shared the petition in my bio, everybody went crazy, you know what I'm saying? And then from there, you know, sort of these simultaneous, and then me and Angel, my DC native partner, we have reached out to the council member, Brianna Doe. So we, you know, and then that was unfolding, and she didn't let us support. Robert White did let us support. Kenya came. Then the guy Yada did the activation on 14th and U the next day. So these things just started to culminate, and then, you know, eventually that birthed into these activations, and then Mochella happened, and then we was pressing on the council, and blah, and then so now, you know, the guy from T-Mobile was like, the music on, you know.
So Tony, if you could describe Go-Go in 3 words, what would it be?
African, soulful, tribal.
Salute.
And on that, my brother, yo, as always, man, I knew we was going to cover a whole lot of ground. I don't even know. We could talk all night.
Yeah,
but
man.
I think we covered about every single topic that I have listed on my pad right here. We covered I couldn't cross them all out, but they're all done.
Oh, man.
Everything. Right? It's like,
guys, man. Thank you all y'all do, man, for real. Peace.